All right, your SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by RPT and Rick's Pro Truck. Locations I-55 South, Lakeland Drive in Flowood, and their new location, Gluckstadt, Madison County. RPT, spray and bed liners, lift kits, you name it, they've got it. RPT, ricksprotruck.com. Our guests join us on the Abita Andy Gator guest line. We welcome in Mike Detillier, LSU Saints insider, and Mike joins us on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Mike, I didn't know that this would be, that we would throw out the word rebuild with LSU, but this sure looks like a kind of a bigger shift in task at hand. Would you call this a rebuild, or are they still LSU and they're going to reload at some point?
Well, they ain't reloading this year. I mean, come on. There comes a point where you have an identity, and that's not going to change for a season. You are who you are. Okay? Now, you might be an LSU fan and say, well, eventually it'll come together. Well, you only got 2 more games. So how much longer you got to wait? Come on, you are who you are as a football team. And that's just the way it's going to be. And Orgeron has a lot of things he's got to do this offseason. And not only from a personnel standpoint, from a coaching standpoint. Because you're not going to get a pass, much longer. It's just the world of college football, big-time world of it. And so, it's this LSU team has a certain identity. They're terrible on defense. There seems to be certainly a disconnect between a hard-headed defensive coordinator and his talent, that he wants to play his scheme and he won't adjust. It was a bad hire, bottom line. And that's been obvious. I've said this now well over a month. This team's not going to all of a sudden get better on defense. They're bad, and it's going to stay that way. So as far as reload, rebuild, however you want to name it, it ain't happening this year.
All right, so this will be a monster offseason for Orgeron. Couple things. We expect him to make a move with Pelini, maybe some other staff changes. Recruiting looks to be, LSU always just lives in the top 5, and that's
that's shocking to me. But it's 2020, so really nothing should surprise me anymore. But how, this team has still been able to recruit so well through all this turmoil. Everything went right last year, okay? And I get it. That's why certainly players want to come to LSU to play, opportunities. They've sent a lot of players to the NFL and that sort of thing. But in this season of turmoil, how this team has been able to recruit. Now, you got to finish now, okay? You got to sign them. Not only get the commitments, but you got to sign. And Ed got another commitment, even though he wouldn't announce who it is, but he got another commitment last night. So that to me is typical of 2020, that a football team that has been down and out all season long and yet is still recruiting as one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the country. That's the craziest damn thing I've seen. I could understand the Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama situation, but because they're still winning. But this is really something, and I think it goes to show the brand of LSU.
Yeah. No, but okay. So, what is the temperature down there? He just won a title, so he lived through this offseason, even though it was a weird year. He lived through this offseason of national champ, Joe Burrow, all this kind of stuff. After what happened Saturday night against Alabama, Mike, where, it's not even competitive, and Saban takes his foot off the pedal, what is the conversation like in South Louisiana?
Well, it ain't good if that's what you want. I mean, come on, it's just not a good temperature right now. And again, this all falls back on Ed, okay? And he realizes it more than anybody that this is put in his lap. And I've said this so many times, sort of repeating myself, but I think things in life eh, that you measure people or teams or whatever on is not how you handle the bad times. Because you know what? We get a lot more bad than we get good. It's how you handle success. And I think LSU did not handle the offseason of success very well, all the way around. The hires of the offseason, because I think a lot of people sort of my age don't like to hear this, but I'm a big believer in it. The people that are breakthrough people today, for the most part, not all, but most, are younger people. And look who you hired: Bo Pelini, Scott Linehan, two older guys in this business. I would have went a different direction because I do think when you look at the success of a Joe Brady, you had on the staff George Munoz, who's now at Baylor. I think that younger guy who's got some experience, but he's still young in this business, and be willing to change up a little bit is important. Because Bo Pelini has become college football's version of Greg Williams. I'm going to live or die with my scheme, and I ain't changing it. Okay? And LSU sees it now. That's what happened at Nebraska, and that's why he came here. He thought he was going to put in his own scheme. And, listen, you got to have some flexibility all the way around. Nobody was going to take Joe Brady's place. Joe was an innovative guy. He understood the passing game very well and how to mix and match with it. And he had great communication skills with the young talent at LSU. Scott's an older guy. It didn't quite connect as well. And that's why, you got a guy like Arik Gilbert who's seriously thinking about leaving LSU right now. Seriously thinking about it. Serious enough to the point where his mom is in town to talk to him. He says he's homesick. Says, his body's beat up, all this and that. Okay, I get it. But if you're winning, that doesn't happen. That's just bottom line. If you're winning, that, Arik Gilbert's not even thinking about leaving LSU. But it is part of the world we live in. And right now, there's only one guy that can change it. Now, you got some people who are ranting and raving and screaming how a change is coming. That new president at LSU is going to change things. Or Scott Woodard is going to change things at AD. Come on, that's a bunch of horse hockey. There's only one guy that can change that LSU program and get it back, and that's Ed Orgeron right now. It's in his lap. No one else's lap but his. So it's a big job for him. Right now, what I don't see is he doesn't have any leaders. He doesn't have guys that basically last year's team, man, if you screwed up, you weren't afraid to go to the coaches. You were afraid to look at your teammates because they were going to confront you about it. Have you seen anybody on this team like that?
No.
Not a one. And so, again, it's part of the culture. You have to be able to drive. And handling success, and we've all been through it. We've had people in our lives. If it's family members, people we work with, people in the profession you and I are, they get a little bit of success, they're not the same person. Their, personality change, their work ethic change. Everything changes. It's about them. It's not about the team. It becomes, I'm for me, and I'm not for anybody else. And that's what happened at LSU. It's about individual and not about the team. In 2019, you have a ton of team players. I'm not saying you didn't have guys on that football team that were for their individual worth, but man, you had a ton of team guys, and that is the difference today. And you are who you are. It ain't going to change. You today you are who you are. Now, people use the excuse, well, COVID. Well, didn't every college go through that COVID situation? The social unrest of the summer. Well, didn't every college go through that?
Sure.
Okay. When you're a top college, you're going to lose people to the NFL early. Okay. Alabama does, Ohio State does, Oklahoma does. So you understand what you got to go through. That's going to happen. Coaches change. Man, it's a commuter world. Okay, didn't Lane Kiffin put together a whole new staff at Ole Miss? So, okay, you got it. It's part of the world. You can use every excuse in the world, but they did not handle the off season of success well. It's what it's like the movie, right? They lost the eye of the tiger.
Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans, joins us on the Abita Andy Gator guest line. Mike, there's some off-the-field issues going on down there, too. How do you see that impacting the LSU football program and what could shake out with that over the next couple of months?
Yeah, I think with that, and that's some serious allegations with that. Not only just some of it on O's watch, but also some of it on Les Miles's watch, and some of it on the watch of the former athletic director. So there's going to be some structural change there. It has to be. You can't live in today's world with those sort of allegations out there, and some of them are extremely serious. That has to change at LSU. The other part about it is, too, the NCAA is living in your backyard because of what happened with Will Wade and basketball.
Right.
So, man, listen, wherever you turn, it ain't good. And so you can, woe is me, I feel sorry for myself. No, you got to keep rolling. But change from that standpoint structurally has to happen at LSU. And how they've handled allegations. And it's difficult today. I get it. I talk to college coaches all the time about, different things that happen. And from day to day, their stories change. Player stories change. People involved in change. So, man, listen, teachers today and people administrators today, man, they you might say they get paid a lot of money, but man, it's sort of a tough situation to go through. But that can't be covered up. It cannot be covered up. And my thing about it is, and some of these are really serious allegations, where are the police reports on that?
Right.
So it's just not the school. Something else is involved here that stinks too.
Yeah, no question. How does Will Wade still have a job?
I don't know. Listen, I know Will, and him and I, we have a good relationship as far as talking and everything. But man, listen, it's unbelievable how he has survived this, and almost like Teflon, And look how he's recruited too. I mean, that's the other part about it. But that's a really good question. And listen, the NCAA is sitting in LSU's backyard, and a lot of that has to do with Will. And it's sort of flagrant, not sort of flagrant. Well, come on, we all know. We're all big enough to understand there's widespread cheating going on in college athletics. If you don't want to accept that, then you really get your head in the sand. It goes on everywhere. But that was pretty blatant by Wade, and he survived it. And here's the best part. You look at it, that he has sort of flourished on the recruiting trail. He hasn't missed a beat with it. And Mo, again, it's 2020, isn't it? It is the craziest damn thing I've ever seen. And he has survived so far. And if he was a losing coach, that's no way. But there's a reason why he's the head coach there. He wins. He finds a way to win. He just and that oversees a lot of things. And we can like that part or don't like it, but it's the honest truth. If he was a middle of the road coach, he wouldn't be here.
No, that's remarkable. I mean, Scandal even got Rick Pitino, who's a basketball emperor.
Right.
That's yeah. I can't believe it. For our listeners, we're talking about Will Wade, the LSU head basketball coach that's been tied into all kinds of craziness. But somehow Scott Woodward or whoever can't fire him for whatever reason. I'm not exactly sure. It's
and Oliva, I think was going to do it. I think Joe would have done it, and I think that's someone makes a decision here to say no. Oh, you're not getting rid of him. We're getting rid of you.
Wow.
And bottom line is, listen, Joe was not. He'd have got an F in the Dale Carnegie class of meeting people and influencing friends. I mean, it's no D student. He's an F. He was an F student in that category.
Joe Oliva, the former AD, so he just didn't understand the fact that you had to go out and press the flesh and snooze people.
Squat. He didn't understand squat. Zero. And so, there's a reason why he's not here. So, however you want to take a look at it, because today, really, athletic directors, their main job is really to raise money. That's a big part of your job today when you're an AD. You oversee the programs, but you also are part of the fundraising part of things. I've been to events. He comes in and he leaves. Okay, he would come in, make a little talk, poof, I'm out of here. Okay, I did my duty. No, your duty is to make sure that a guy who's got a check gives it to you, right? That's part of your job as an athletic director. And he didn't understand that one bit. Didn't understand it one bit. He lives sort of in a cocoon here in Baton Rouge, and so it's it is what it is. He also, if you remember, he was the one who he wanted to leave Les Miles go a year earlier.
Right.
Than what happened. He was standing up against a lot of people who felt, hey, listen, give Les one more chance. Okay, here was the mistake. I go back to what I said. I think you get a certain age you don't want to change. And Les wasn't going to change for anybody. And so they both were wrong, and they yet both were right. I think Joe understood that you had an older coach who was never going to change with the times for anything. And he felt, hey, I'm winning with what I have, and so why should I change? No, because you had to. And then Scott Long thinks, well, I'm going to bring him to Kansas. I'm going to change him here. What has happened?
Not happening. No.
Okay, so listen, and I think a lot of Les as a person, I think he's a really good guy. But in our profession, in any profession, you get to a point where if you don't change, then you have to move on. And he just has refused to change in a lot of ways. And, again, it's taken away from some of the stuff that, because he was always going to be a quirky guy, and he gave you all kind of, he never answered a question. I mean, you could ask him virtually anything, and he was, by the time he finished, Bo, you forgot what you asked him.
No doubt.
He would just kind of go on and on and on and on. The only question he answered correctly for me, because we'd have him on weekly, was one time I asked him about what was his most memorable Thanksgiving and Christmas. And he sort of answered that. But other times, you ask him a question, and we sort of look around, where's he going with this? And who used to be like that, too, was Hank Stram. You asked Hank a question, and you forgot what you asked him.
Mm-hmm.
So it was what it was. But again, I think you become stubborn about, I'm not going to change for anybody. This is how I've built things, and I'm not going to change. And what has made Nick Saban as good as he is? Isn't it been his ability to adapt to the different times, different world, different kids, different coaches? He didn't want to change necessarily from his style of offense, but Lane Kiffin came in and he changed that.
Right.
Now Nick kind of kicked a little bit, okay, but and he was squawking and hollering about this fast offense and there should be, that shouldn't be allowed to happen. But finally, he's embraced it, okay, and he brings in a guy like Steve Sarkisian, who similar traits to Lane in a lot of ways, and what he does offensively. He adapted to change. And I think that's what's made him the greatest college football coach of all time. And you think about this year with the COVID situation, with the social unrest of the summer, with no spring. He lost coaches. He lost players early to the NFL. If he wins a national championship, I'll say this. I think it's the greatest head coaching job he's ever done in his life. Think about it.
Yeah.
There is no book to go to on how to handle this of 2020. There is no individual you can go to and say, give me some advice on how to handle it. He handled it at 69 years old better than anybody. It's remarkable,
it is.
But it's true.
It is.
And last year, who was squawking? Didn't you hear Alabama fans? Even Paul Feinbaum. I think this is the end of the Nick Saban big-time run at Alabama.
Oh, heck, yeah. I mean, Mike, I thought with the defensive coordinator he had that they weren't going to get it done this year. I'll be dang if they don't just come back and smoke everybody in the league and look to be the favorite in the college football playoff. We'll leave it there.
Don't they look like LSU of a year ago?
Yes. Yes. I mean, they are Mike Detillier, at Mike Detillier on Twitter, WWL Radio and TV in New Orleans, joining us on the Abita Pecan guest line. Mike, have a super week. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Bo. Appreciate it, bud.
He's the best. At Mike Detillier on Twitter. He knows what's going on with the LSU Tigers, New Orleans Saints, and all around the NFL. Been covering the draft for over 30 years. Mike Detillier on the Abita Pecan guest line. Don't forget to try Parish Canebrake beer. It's a wheat ale. Super, super delicious. We have it here in studio. And it's funny when we're entertaining people, in the afternoon, and we serve it to them, it's been a home run. So remember that beer over the holiday. Well, anything from Parish is really good. It's a great brewery out of Louisiana. We're going to tell you about a new one out of Mississippi, too, sooner than later. But that's Parish Canebrake beer. Throw some burgers on the grill. You'll be happy, happy. Live in the Bank Plus studios, speaking of Louisiana, show is brought to you by the Charbroiled Oysters at Drago's Seafood Restaurant and Oyster Bar.